assessor and representatives from the borough had sort of a meeting and talk a little bit about this and try to make sure that it was going to work for everyone involved. And so coming out of that meeting, a couple of changes to this document you've seen before. This is all proposed, but we're proposing to increase the minimum, sort of the floor for someone doing alerta to $20,000. That's an increase from $10,000 in the last proposal. And the reason for that is that it moves it into sort of the more substantial home modification range that's based on some stuff off the internet. That's 20,000 is kind of a median for something that would actually change your home value, as opposed to just keeping your house up to date. And that would be on the residential side. On the commercial side, $20,000 doesn't get you very far in terms of much of anything. So the commercial side would be larger. And then in terms of the actual proposed exemption schedule, the assessor indicated that they are not a fan of the phased reductions. It makes their accounting really difficult, apparently. And so this is proposing simply a 7-year abatement schedule, where basically once the Florida abatement goes into effect for a parcel, the so once it goes into the Florida for abatement, it'd be 7 years where it's taxed at the pre-improvement rate, because remember, Florida never changes your pre-improvement rate. You always get your base is still always there. And then after 7 years, it would just go away. And so this just reflects that, and sort of example mathematics there has been changed to reflect that. And then the other point of discussion was sort of how this would all sort of work. And basically that's covered in the there's this proposed LRTA there. The borough would notify the tax assessor and coordinate with them to make sure that this is on their rolls for property. And since the assessor is doing the taxes for the school and the county and the borough, they could track it by property. So everyone seemed to agree that there was a good way to do this, and that the assessor is already doing similar abatements for other municipalities, so they were familiar with the process and seemed to be comfortable with it. And Jerry, if I'm misrepresenting or missing anything, if you want to hop in, please.
No, I think we had a lot of discussion that day. I think from what they really don't have a system in place to phase it in, like Mr. Ford said. And they do have a system for already tracking similar programs or maybe other LRTAs in the county. One of their biggest things that they track, somewhat similar to this, is KOZs. The Indiana School District does have some of those in place. This could be a few more properties depending on how popular the program is. I just think from a district's perspective, we need to make sure that the assessment office does have a good system in place to do that, because we as a district are not necessarily going to know when when somebody takes advantage of the program, because we don't see that necessarily. Especially the only time we may see that is we do get a list periodically from the assessment office that shows increases, decreases, and assessed value based on somebody tears their garage down, somebody builds a new house, those type of things. I don't know if these would show on there, because at the time when they're put in, if they're under the LRTA program, they're going to have no value assigned to them, or they're going to be that new value is going to be exempt. So we just need to make sure as a district that the assessment office has a good program in place, a good system in place, that every year they're double checking that is this property coming, or this part of the property coming on because it's 7 years old now. That's what I want to make sure, because we don't have a way of saying, hey, remember, assessment office, this person gets a different tax bill this year.
You feel confident they know what they're doing?
I mean,
they've done this before.
They've done it before.
Yeah.
The Frank Cisco's description of their system is somewhat 19th century sounding in terms of just the way they keep track of things. But he was confident that they were able to do this and that they track it. And so it's not broke, don't fix it kind of. I think they seem to have a system that works for them. So yeah, I came away feeling pretty good about their methodologies in terms of how they handle it.
to have a letter from Francisco that he, in writing, that he feels that he can do this and that his steps that are in place will accurately protect the district.
Yeah, I can.
I think they have to put it in writing.
I agree, Madam Vice President. Our concern this morning was how they're going to police this, who's going to enroll that. We don't want angry constituents coming to us if they did or did not get a bill, or if the assessment price doesn't match or is not aligned. So that was our biggest concern, how it's going to be operationalized. But if you agree, Ben, it's not our issue,
The whole operation's inside the county courthouse.
as it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, we won't have anything to do with it unless,
Unless there's a problem.
unless
with
it's,
what-
well, but then the whole county's in problem. Okay, because
Well,
there's dozens of these things
I
around,
think we
there's
should
at least
get
one in the
something in
county.
writing.
The state legislation, or the foundational legislation, sort of allows for this concern in that it talks about how if someone has an issue with their assessment, that it then basically falls under the normal assessment review process for that county. So it's, I mean, it's designed to sort of to take it off the individual taxing bodies and keep it within the folks who do the assessment. But yeah, I mean, I think if you, a letter sort of.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Agree.
And you'll look at it.
Mhm.
What are the next steps that you contemplate taking?
So so in order for this to move beyond simply me coming and talking to you other people, it needs to be, we need to basically schedule a combined meeting with the county, the school board, and the borough, which I'm sure will be fun to get on the calendar. It's a public meeting, right? And at that meeting, we would present sort of a draft proposal of what we all sort of think would be workable. So that's why I keep bringing this sort of summary to you guys, because this is sort of the latest of what, the borough is sort of thinking, and so we're showing the county as well. So someone sees a big problem with any sort of the geographic area, including the borough, of the abatement schedule of the 7 years, 100%, of the floor at $20,000. If any of those sort of things that are like, major milestones or touchstones in this are a problem, we should deal with that before I think we go to a big part of the scheduled meeting.
But you've talked with the county and you've always talked to the borough.
Yeah.
So if that's the only three things we have to decide, it's pretty, 7 years, 20,000 floor. There's no other big decision, is there?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah, we're not going to exclude Ward 3 of the borough.
No. So basically, but I mean, I don't want to presume that you guys are comfortable with either. It's not my place, and so but that would be, we'd need to have a meeting that would sort of have all of our constituents be able to come and talk to everyone at one time.
So you're contemplating a borough meeting in which you would invite us,
I
or?
don't know what I'm contemplating at this point for that. I mean, we'd have to look at everyone's schedules and try to figure out. I don't think we need the entire school board, the entire borough council, but we need representation.
Yeah.
And that meeting is, again, that's required in the learning law. And then from there, basically everyone would go back to their respective lawyers and process and draft up the thing that they would pass that would enshrine this in their little piece. Because the borough has so our vocabulary for, which I think is different than school districts vocabulary for how you sort of put things into your law.
But you can give us a draft of what you're going to do. We can give that to our attorney. Okay, so
And your solicitor very well might be able to have other ones that school boards have agreed to that are already in with correct.
but if he starts off with yours, then ours will be in alignment.
Right, you can plug in.
I'm trying to
So
make this as simple as
ideally-
possible.
Yeah, but ideally, when do you want to have this wrapped up?
I would love to have it done before the end of this year.
Yeah, we should do it before the general election,
That would be.
so we don't end up dealing with the different bodies.
Well, yes, okay. So you'll float dates with us and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, if again, I guess, I don't know in y'all's process if this needs to go to the full school board for sort of at least a
Well, I
strong
want
vote.
to make sure we have one last discussion at committee, so I think Jared will put, we polled the board the last time, nobody had any significant
Yeah.
objections. Tom's really for it, so, but nobody said no, I'm totally against it. Maybe Walter seems to be concerned about a few things, but, so I think we should have a discussion for our next agenda, explain what he's told us on whenever we're meeting next. I forget.
It'd be good if
For
the,
audit and finance.
it'd be good if the solicitor could have the ordinance prepped at that point.
Well,
Well,
that's.
No,
probably
no.
not-
No,
Well, not until
no,
we have a
we
joint
have to
meeting.
generate an ordinance. We have to generate a motion, but we have to have the solicitor generate the verbiage.
Well, yeah, but that's not an ordinance.
I'm sorry, okay. Can we have in order to speed this up slightly, can we have the attorney work with the borough in getting this language wrapped up? So we know what we're talking about and know what we're voting on.
Well, Jared can familiarize them with it.
And you would vote, you would vote to approve the ordinance after the giant kumbaya meeting.
Right, right. But you can do that in a week.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure how it all falls into perspective. but yeah,
It's
that-
not gonna be a week, Tom.
I know.
So Ben, so I've had a couple questions about this and there does seem to be a misunderstanding.
Okay.
Are there going to be public information sessions or public documents made? Because what I'm hearing is if we do this LRTA, that people are going to have a tax freeze for 7 years. And I'm like, no, it's your assessment that's not going to change.
Right.
If your assessment is $100,000 and your taxes are $100 a year, but the school board raises taxes, your taxes are going to go up, but your assessment's not.
Right.
So that seems to be something that is being looked at in the community as, oh, it's a tax freeze. My taxes are not going to go up, but they could go up.
Right, and that's a misunderstanding.
So that needs to be made really, really clear.
Okay.
To-
Yeah,
I mean,
we can make it as clear as we can. I can't
Yeah.
get into the full
I know.
But we can make it as clear as possible.
And then, Jared, is it not possible, could we not just ask for a yearly report or a monthly report of any property that's doing the LRTA thing? Could you not have a LRTA report?
We could, absolutely.
LRTA alert.
Yeah, I mean, we can always ask the assessment office for, at the end of the year, what program or what properties are falling under this program right now.
Because that way then, if you know when it starts, we could put the 7-year date on it and, we could track it easily, January 1st, oh, these 5 are due. And make sure that it happens then, because I can see that's going to fall through the cracks. If they've got an antiquated, whatever, if I don't know what their system is.
And
but-
I'm, Ben, for me, along those same lines, I don't want to move forward unless they put something in writing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because they've left people hanging for out the door.
Yeah, I can ask Frank for something to explain his process or the assessment office, their process for tracking these.
Then it's their responsibility, not ours.
Yes.
They have to say that. And that way, if something slips through the cracks, we can legitimately say to one of our own constituents of the district, this is the guy you go see. You go see Mr. Sisto, you don't.
Jared, at this point, we just have to be good listeners, give this out to the board. They already saw it, give it to the solicitor, get some feedback. We'll get that letter we want. But there's no need to support this, veto it, do anything until that big meeting with the 3 entities, correct?
Yes.
So we're good for now. I think right now you give us the feedback we want. We'll have the solicitor review it, get the letter.
Before the meeting with the 3 entities, I'd like to have a draft of the ordinance so that we know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's what I think Ron,
Okay.
we can work with
And
Ron. and
Modeled on what the borough's ordinance is going to look like. So that we can sit there and make it happen.
One more thing, Terry, may I ask Jared? Since we're not having a finance meeting next week, can you just give us a very quick, we're not going to belabor it, just because this is Terry's meeting, just a very quick rundown on where you are with the forgiveness of debt on the PAMS thing?
The report that we had a couple weeks ago, I clarified from Pam's that was like $375,000. That was the outstanding taxes. If you add in fees, penalties, interest, all that, the amount is actually around $700,000. So that 375 was the taxes, the EIT that was actually owed to the district. Other than that,
And when you say that, it's uncollectible. It's uncollectible. Okay, they have to go to the court system to collect that money, and they're not doing it. They should have done it 10 years ago, and they didn't do it. It's primarily wage tax.
My question is, if we forgive the debt, can they still try, to what extent can they continue to try to take it to court and collect? Because I'm afraid all it means is that we're not going to pursue it.
no, they're working on behalf of the district. So if we tell them we're forgiving that, they don't continue, just like when the board voted a couple of weeks ago to, forgive an individual taxpayer's debt, then that is not collected. That account is zeroed
So
out.
they're stopped essentially from
Yes.
moving forward on the
Yes.
case. So did they given us a list of everybody?
No, I don't have a list of every single taxpayer. No,
You think they even have one?
I'm sure they could run
Something.
we've all seen the Pam's statements. I'm sure they could run a statement for everyone. Maybe they can summarize
I
it.
just wonder if they have it on a loop, like this taxpayer, this tax amount, the delinquency, the way you run a typical delinquency report is you don't put the whole client history, but you do put,
I'm sure we could get a list.
I
The
just-
minute we have that, though, and I would just warn the board, the minute we have that, that becomes a public document. And somebody could do a right to know request and get that.
I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't know. I'm not so sure, but we need to, because, I'm assuming we're going to embark on a pretty large forgiveness plan of the outstanding, and also say, which would also cut off penalty and interest. So, but I don't want anybody out there who realizes maybe Pam's has a case to think I got away with it. So if your name's published, but we need to think about that. We need to think about it a little bit. So I don't think we're ready to make a decision, other than I think it's the general consensus of the board and the committee that we're willing to forgive a good bit of it, if not all of it. Am I mistaken in that understanding?
No,
I'm ready.
I don't have any confidence in any list they would give us, because I don't have any confidence that the $375,000 is real. They
Well,
make
that's what I
up, they make
wondered.
up these amounts that people owe, and I just,
And then they don't have the paperwork to back it up,
yeah.
and they can't take it to court. And anytime they turn around and try to take something to court for 10 years on a wage tax, they're not going to collect it.
Right, I understand. It's just.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
I'm certainly ready to move forward
All
with
right,
it.
we're ready. to-
So, I have a question. Right. Ben, if someone would to go into the LERTA, and maybe you answered this before, but would go into the LERTA program and then say they sell the property, does anything happen? Does it stay on track?
The LERTA is transferable with the property. So if you have an abatement and you spend 3 years in the abatement, it's 4 more years. When you sell the property, the remaining 4 years of the abatement goes with the property.
Any other questions for Mr. Ford?
Thank you, Terry.
The only thing I'll say is that you would think with this being used in other municipalities that there are some draft ordinances and then agreements for the school board and stuff to look at. So hopefully Ron, has a school district that they service that maybe has done this. And then I don't know, Jared, if you've thrown out or contacted any school district that has done this. I know Mr. Ford gave us some names, and it probably wouldn't hurt to call at least one of them and just say, ask them, let me finish, Tom, please. And ask them if, have they learned anything from it? And I'm sure they'd share it with you. So go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
This isn't significantly different than any of the Keystone Opportunity Zones that we've done, or the things that we did for the dairy farm. I don't believe we've participated in exactly in the LERTA with the county.
School board?
Yeah, the school board.
Not that I'm aware of.
The county has done them, so the county, Brian Stauffer has these documents in hand that have already been approved. So, and that's what you've been working with, is this is not and this program has been around for how long now?
Since 1970.
Yeah, so it's not a mystery. It's a little confusing here, but it's a standard program. It's across the Commonwealth. Anybody could participate, and they do, and they try to do it for economic development.
So I guess you're supporting what I just said.
I am, but I'm also trying to get some of this stuff off our plate. And we keep looking at it, let's move it ahead or walk away from it. But let's try to get some things wrapped up.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
If not, we'll go, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you all for your time.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
We'll go back to the agenda, the number one thing, which is the East Pike roof. As many of you know, we've talked about this for, I think, over a year. So I actually jotted some things down, and I had asked Jared to put that matrix together. So there's any criticism on any of those things, shoot them my way, not Jared's way. But I thought I like seeing stuff like this because it puts things into a good perspective to where we can understand it. What I want to start out with saying is that we basically have two roofs on the East Pike complex. There's the building, the school building, and then the administrative wing. And we've concluded that there are two separate roofs. There is a parapet wall between the two. So what I'm proposing is that we reach consensus tonight on the type of roof that we're going to place on the school building. And then once we do that, then Jared can work on getting that estimates and hopefully then we approve it and we can get that locked up for next summer. Plan B would be to start looking at the administrative wing. I'll explain that the HVAC systems that are on the administrative wing are way past their life expectancy. They're not in good condition. So Jared had contacted, is it CGL or CJL? Who is, and I'll let you explain, you're an engineering firm from what I understand. You're say familiar experts in HVAC systems. So
We're an MEP.
what is it?
MEP, mechanical.
Okay.
Plumbing. My name's Eric Grower. I'm a CPA. Nice to meet you.
All right, thank you. So the idea would then to come to consensus then also on this administrative wing with a new HVAC system, and then we could replace the roof in same time as that. And my goal would be to get this done prior to the school building roof started, and then we could possibly do the two projects together would be my desire. For many reasons, economy of scale, for upsetting the building, the area, trying to get it done while school's out and all that stuff. There just seems to be a lot of benefit to that. Is that clear, my concept here?
Can I suggest a methodology here?
Yes.
If we pick one of these for the school itself as the base bid, and then pick the same one for the administration wing as the alternate bid that would come later. We could enter into the contract that would allow us to get started while we're screwing around with getting the roof on the educational portion of the building. We can be figuring out the mechanical systems. And the mechanical systems have been whacking this dog on this building here. They're about the same price as the entire roof. We could get started on with the base. We get your we get your order of magnitude scale. We get base bid and the alternate bid, and we preserve the right to trigger that alternate bid at a later date. So you're going to need a week or 2 weeks to do a mechanical system, maybe a month.
I was thinking more like 3 months.
Yeah. So they could do at a contractor's option. They could do the roof on the school building independently of this building, and they can come back then and do this building when the mechanical systems are reset. So
You want to try and get them done at the same time, though? I mean, that'd be our.
it would be ideal, but that requires 7 miracles in a row.
Well, I don't.
Okay, but if the contractor has the bid for the whole enchilada, he'll do this roof separately. We've been doing this masking so long now that my stretchy things are not stretchy anymore. Yeah, I'm wrapping twice around my ear. So anyway, but that would be the way to do it. The contractor, and this roof isn't.
Timeline, Tom, let me just talk about this. I mean, we talked that we wanted to wait till school's out. So that's at least May, probably early June or mid-June for the school building roof to start. If Eric is saying 3 months to get the HVAC system figured out.
Yeah, and exactly what you're saying.
January, we should be ready to hopefully make a decision on the HVAC.
We
So-
could bid the whole roof.
I don't want to say that that it's going to take a miracle to do the ideal thing.
It may not, but we could bid the roof now with today's prices and the contractor taking the risks. And then they could start the work in May. Okay, they could start the work at that point. If we can get the mechanical systems done and ready to go, that's a separate bid, but they could put it on the new roof then.
We probably wouldn't put it out to bid till probably November. And
Well, if we buy the state contract, you could have a contract here next week.
Yeah, we just to be clear, is the board talking about doing a formal bid advertising for 3 weeks, or is the committee and board agreeable to us just using the state contract to get the roof?
I'm fine with the state contract because of the quickness, okay, and the roof then is the roof portion is taken care of. There's $700,000 that we've already committed. It's going to take you a couple of weeks or 3 months to get a mechanical system put together that we find acceptable. So sometime in November, you're going to have something that we know is going to work, and you may be able to bid it this year for installation in the summertime. And this is a big enough project that you want a contractor to have enough time to order materials and get geared up for it. So I'm okay bidding the roof on the state contract, okay, and then doing mechanical. I'm sorry, not bidding the roof, doing the state contract, and then bidding the mechanical system.
Yeah, if we can go off a state contract, that makes it very easy that, if we are able to get the HVAC system in place and installed for summer, it's just simply telling the guy who's here putting the roof on, do you have time to add this piece on at that time? The costs are,
Well, we have a contract for that amount, ready to
Wait a
go.
minute.
we would just add to that contract. We don't have to have something in place ahead of time because the state
But
price
I
is
want to have a base bid price and a cost for the roof that somebody signed on, so that we know what those numbers are. We're not worried about it anymore. Okay, so if you do it as an alternate to the contract, it doesn't come in play. We can
explain how the state contract.
Well,
if we went to state
Hold on.
contract.
Yeah, can I just interject something?
Yeah.
So what are you now projecting our reserve to be, our excess reserve to be?
You mean the budget as far as the 2021 that we're closing out? Probably over $1 million.
Okay, so looks like we maybe are going to have to reserve all of it if we're going to put it into the capital reserve. If you're talking about what you're saying makes sense to me, but we want to make sure we've got, and we're not trying to do 2 reserves.
So Jared, please explain what Tom's saying. How would that be done with the state contract?
With the state contract, the prices are set. So we would be, if we make a decision tonight as to what we're going to do, we would reach out to somebody who's approved on the state contract list. We're actually buying a door. If it's a door last roof, that price is set for the materials and everything. Now there can be some contingencies, and they've made it clear that insulation is one place that you're going to need some contingencies on. We're not going to know for sure in December. Nobody's going to give us a set price in December for anything. They're going to give us a price, and they're going to say a 10% contingency or whatever, because there's certain things they can lock in now, like the door last material, but insulation, they cannot and will not lock that in right now. They will come May or June when they can get it, is when they're going to lock in that price. But the door last part of that, and we can lock in because they know that's the state contracted price. If we get to June and we are able to do the HVAC system, all we really have to do is go back to them and say, we have this square footage of roof now. Can you work this in? And the price is set pretty much because it's a door last roof. It's the same thing. It's under state contract. They cannot increase or decrease the price of parts of it. Insulation is a contingency part that can vary, but
Is not the price, don't they have the right to adjust the price periodically? I mean, they didn't establish this price 10 years ago and fix it.
no, it's rebid every single year. Like The state rebids
Okay,
it.
my point is that if we do this now with a base and an alternate, we fix their prices at 2021 rather than 2022.
And
And then the board would have some idea where the decimal point falls on that second piece.
we can certainly ask them to give us a quote on this. We can have them give us a quote on both sides and ask if they would enter into a contract that would allow us to add on
That's what I'm asking.
the roof later on.
No, it's not later on. It's going to be summer. We're not going to do this roof till summertime. So are they going to enter into a contract to start the work sometime in May?
Absolutely, for that piece of it. What if we are not able to do this next
You're
summer?
going to be able to do it.
Okay.
Okay, and if we don't, that's the reason you use the alternate. Okay, you don't have to authorize the alternate.
Yes, we can get, we
Okay.
can have this as a separate piece of it.
But
Because
I,
even if we get the HVAC designed, we get it bid, we don't know what the supply chain is gonna be like, whether that
No.
equipment comes in June or July or,
and,
you know, so.
and we can decide
It'll
not
be
to.
good to do it, you know, the way Jared's saying.
I'm
You
not sure.
can
I'm not
add
sure.
that in.
I'm not sure that we're saying anything differently, but having the ability not to pull the trigger is what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
But having the ability to fix the cost is what I'm really looking for. Okay.
Yep.
For May, you got, God, what is it, 9 months to get a design together and 15 tons of machinery. So I mean,
Well,
that's certainly possible to get done.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have, in order to install this in the summer, you'd have to get bids back by the beginning of March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lead times.
Yeah.
So you'd want to be bidding in February.
Yeah.
Right.
No, in fact, I'd like to be bidding it in January, so it's an early job and so that they get the orders in.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're running out of time for that. That's very close.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't have anything else to do.
Does the main part
I
of the
wish
building
that were
need
the
a new
case,
unit?
but we're very busy.
The main part of the building has one unit on the old office area that would float off.
What was your question, Mark?
That what? Repeat what we're supposed
We have one unit in the main office area.
Right.
Okay, that I would take off the roof and dispose of, because the main office area is one giant unit for multiple uses. And it's a Freon system. It's not worth keeping.
We have to decide that tonight.
No, but Barb asked the question.
Oh, she asked a question. Well, I couldn't hear because you interrupted her. As soon as she asked the question, Tom. So what was your question?
If there was, I couldn't remember if there's any units on the main building.
The old
I've been doing
office.
this
Your
all day.
main building, which is what? One down here.
Well,
The school building.
Okay, yes.
How much?
And there are some units.
So what if we were to come back later and add air conditioning to the school building? Not to,
We would add, you mean to the whole building?
yeah, but how would that change, would that change anything
Well,
on the roof?
okay, the whole building is a massive amount of work, okay? Adding air conditioning back into the old office area for smaller systems that are tuned for the use, that's pretty easy. Okay, we do some kind of split system, we call it a job. Doing air conditioning throughout the whole building is basically the building's not set up for air conditioning. So, and the tonnage, God, it'd be 150 tons of air conditioning.
A couple $1 million.
Oh,
At least.
I mean, the air conditioning, the system that we currently have doesn't support air conditioning. So we would have to do something significantly different than we're doing right now.
Yeah, full building air conditioning would be a major project. I don't think you have time to time that and get it started to be built
Well,
in
and
the summer of 2020.
Have you looked at it already a little bit? I mean,
I was here for an hour before this meeting, yeah. The smaller project, I don't think it's as simple as it was just stated, but
I'm an
there are
architect.
some
I'm an
functional
architect. It's always
issues
simple.
in this building that I've been told about, in this part of the building. But doing this part of the building would be a lot simpler than a full air conditioning upgrade.
And when you're talking about 70,000 feet, you're looking at about 300 tons of air conditioning. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a huge amount of
are
work.
we okay not going down that rabbit hole? Or
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, like when we put the roof on, what it would take to, if you further upgrade the building.
Big,
Um,
big chunk of
The-
money.
Do you mean as far as difficulty doing it or money?
Difficulty doing it.
You can
No,
always
yes,
do
you
it
can always
later.
do it.
Yeah, and it's really not,
What's hard is to leave that unit there, the old one, and put a new roof on, and then change our minds and want that to be gone. We need that to be gone, do the whole roof, and then decide what we're gonna do with the rest.
But we're only talking about one
You do
unit.
the whole roof in the school.
Yeah, we're talking about the air conditioning over the old office.
But we can't completely eliminate that unit
Right.
because that unit it does provide cooling to that area, but it provides heating and airflow to that area at the same
Okay,
time.
we can definitely take that unit off the roof and replace it with something else. And that's a relatively simple replacement. Once we figure it out, what we want to do there. Okay, I'd like to know what we're going to do there. It's obviously not going to be a nursing station and a office mailbox. Okay, so what are we going to do there? And then pick the mechanical system that makes sense. Okay, but in the meantime, you have R42 on the whole roof.
Chinese nurse.
One very important thing to remember, if we're gonna put people in those spaces, we have to provide air change.
I'm fully aware of that. Okay, I'm saying that sometime in June, we can put a new system in that thing. It's going to be a 10-ton system. Okay, it's going to cost us $50,000. So I'm not saying pull it off the roof and never put anything back. I'm saying pull it off the roof, put something back that makes sense, but we can do that when we figure out what we're going to do with that space.
I think, Mr. Vukovich, do we have an idea what we are doing with that space? I
Yes, thank
thought
you.
you were
Yeah,
coming
thank
down.
you, Mr. Kerr. What we're doing, let me tell you what we're doing now, what I think is going to go in the future, because Cheney, Greg, and myself and Justin, we're working on this. Right now, we use for a couple different things. It's used as a classroom for one of our pull-out special ed classes, as well as for some of our teachers who are doing the synchronous learning there. What we would like to look at, and we're not ready yet because we haven't decided what we're doing. Like, we haven't got through the roof here. We haven't done anything with the air conditioning. But what we would like to do and talk about to the board when it comes time, right, is that nurses station would be an ideal location for another special ed classroom. But you have two walls there, and we're not at the point where we already are knowledgeable enough to know if we need to architect in to look at that, if we could take that down or whatnot. But what we'd like to see happen in that nurses room is that become one of the autistic classrooms, because what we're doing is we're getting inundated with the amount of individual classroom air conditioners. And that is a perfect location, not only because of the air conditioning, but because of the bathrooms, the restrooms, and the nurses stations that are already there. So we'd like to see the nurses station possibly in the next couple of years become a room for one of our artistic support classrooms. Because right now we had to move one from near the music room over to the teacher's lounge, and we lost the teacher's lounge. So that's something we foresee coming down the road. And that's something that we would like to see it become. But we haven't really fully vetted it, but that's exactly what we'd like to, we think that's where we'd like to go. The room right next to it, which is the old guidance office, is already being used in the classroom for special needs. Some of those kids have different doctor slips and notes that require air conditioning. Where we have a little bit of wiggle room is the principal's office and the conference room. Those are being used for the synchronous teachers, but the other two larger areas, those would be ideal for some of the classrooms that needs. As you know, the board made a decision to move over the autistic classrooms over here. And that's another challenge we're facing on a regular basis. Would you agree, Cheney, or did I misspeak at all?
Very accurate.
Jared?
Okay.
No, absolutely.
So that's the future, right? That's what I think the future of that place is. But
Okay, thanks. And so I guess the question is, I want to get this down to two questions. One is the type of roof that we're putting on. And then the second thing is, I think we already decided we're going to have them start looking at this HVAC system here. Do we want them also to look at the HVAC system in the old office? I guess, Tom, you definitely do.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to pile on there, though. I'd like for you to get involved with the architect to get a layout so that the engineer knows what you're doing. Okay, and that's the right sequence. Okay, what is it we want to do? And then let the engineer figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, my opinion would be if you go to that extent of a renovation, you probably do need an architect for you to lay that out. That's not to say if I knew the square footage and functionality of the space that I couldn't just replace the unit that you have up there and run loads. If that unit is malfunctioning, you need to replace it now. We could do that if we had a good sense of the square footage and the functionality of the future space. But ultimately, if you did that, then when you came back to renovate the space, then your ductwork and VAV boxes, your zoning would have to change accordingly. But the unit could.
right. So I guess the question is to Cheney is, does that HVAC system need replaced?
It is of the same age as what you're
Yeah.
at, 99,
Yes, it was when they
same age.
it might be a little bit younger because I think we put that in a little bit later. But the problem with the machine is that it's a single rooftop unit. I hate rooftop units. I hate ductwork on top of the roof even more. Okay. And the problem is it's a 15-ton unit trying to do 3 tons of work periodically. And so It's not the right unit. And we have the ability right now to do smaller units for specific loads and make the space a lot more
Yeah,
comfortable than she is.
So any other comments, questions? Are we okay with CJL also looking at the HVAC system on the old office? Okay. A little bit of processing here. They are not under contract with us yet. He came tonight,
You're the sub to B&H, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're the sub-consultant to Burkhardt Horn.
This would be totally separate. The architects
No, I
are,
understand that, but
I mean, if you guys did a project with Burkhardt Horn, we could certainly do the stuff to them.
okay.
I think what we were talking about here is us being the front.
They would be-
HVAC front.
I'm fine with that because we're not foreseeing any massive changes here. It's still going to be the.
So my question is, we don't have a board meeting till October.
11th, that's
11th?
correct. Would we allow this agency to begin to work now and vote on it retroactively at a later date? I think is what you're saying, Mr. Kerr?
We need a proposal.
I mean, I can certainly get you that. Are we, I don't know that we've defined the scope specifically. So are we, are you guys looking for a proposal for me to do a study on options? Or are you looking for me to do a design proposal? In order to do a design proposal, I would have to, have a better understanding of the scope of, the different areas that we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do a study to put some options out there.
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy to ask, but I'll try to explain it. I think if I'm hearing the board correctly, is there's an appetite or interest to see what the cost were to replace this HVAC system, as well as the one in the old main office. We don't know collectively what the best route is. We have some ideas of what you don't like, but I think what the board's coming back to say, if we were going to make that a classroom, and was the best way to go to provide HVAC as the most reasonable, efficient cost. Correct? Is that what I'm hearing from the board correctly?
But you really need to get that layout solidified for you to do real work.
Agreed. And we can then, that would be another contract we have to bring down the road with Burkhardt Horn. But we can always talk about that. We can work with them. But I think what we don't know is what are our best options for HVAC in this area as well as the old area. And then we can work with the firm, the architect firm, and bring that to you and talk about the layout. Maybe that, I don't know what information you need, right? Because it's not this is not, if you want to talk academics, I can have that conversation. I'm a little mechanical engineering, skip that day.
It sounds to me like we should start out with a study. And, we could assess the equipment that you have, give you some recommendations for, replacement and or, and then, hopefully, that would get the scope narrowed down closer to, what we want to do design wise, and then we can get into a design proposal phase, to do the actual engineering and bid documents.
And Tom, I'm guessing you have some opinion on maybe what type of system not to use, or,
Well,
because I'd rather get that out now
yeah,
instead
the
of
cheapest
them.
thing for her to do is to replace the machine that's on the roof with the machine on the roof. Okay, but that's the worst energy thing we can possibly do. It's a maintenance nightmare. We have ductwork, 50-foot long ductwork that is just virtually uninsulated. So we have all this stuff up in the air there that we're trying to heat and cool this space. It's working really hard. I don't want to see that being the answer.
And you're talking about the rear
I'm talking about, well, but actually
or this area?
both machines, okay?
The rear office area is the back of the school, so there could be a ground, mounted unit put out back that would not hurt the aesthetics. There's no playground back there or anything like that. So
Well,
If you did-
a split system would work. But what we have right now, they put all the distribution on the roof, okay? Because that was easy to do in 1960.
I'm lost. Tom, I'm lost.
I
Can
mean,
we
from
just
a-
slow it down
Well,
for a
the
second?
main thing is when we do the roof, we don't want to screw up the roof
right.
for future HVAC upgrades or.
Well, you would do it at the same time, ideally. Definitely the back
Ideally.
one I think we almost have to. Now, this front one, I don't know where else you could put it other than on the roof.
You mean the one up here?
Yes.
You could do a split system, there's a hole through the roof this big, and there's no ductwork through the roof. Okay, you certainly don't want to run the horizontal ductwork that we have up there now.
Well, I think the challenge there is finding space for an area.
I understand, but that's why you're here,
But
okay? Find
Yeah.
the space.
Right there.
I mean, we have the option of finding space,
Right.
on the ground or inside the building, at that point.
Right, or
So-
doing multiple small machines with small splits on top, okay? So you need
I mean,
to,
that could potentially work, but multiple machines usually take up more overall space than a single
I
machine.
understand, but you could put something in the closet there to do this room as an example.
You want a smaller
I'm-
office, Mike?
I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of the unit ventilator type scenario.
No, I'm not either.
I think air handling systems with VAV and reheat is going to be your most efficient and,
No.
I'll agree to disagree with you on that. There are, chilled water systems would be way more efficient with air handlers as opposed to DX rooftop units. I'll agree with you there. But if we're comparing, small closet units to central station rooftop.
No,
units,
I'm
the
comparing it to
central
heat
station
pumps and
rooftop
water-based
units
heat
are
pumps
a long
and
way
and
from
geothermal and everything else. What you're doing is, right now, we have a system with variable VAV system in place that we can't keep running. Okay, and
But my understanding is it's not a true VAV system, it's some sort of smart diffuser system.
It-
VAV with hot water reheat is actually a very controllable, and efficient, air conditioning system. We put them in schools all the time, and,
Yeah.
it would be my
yeah,
recommended system.
the problem that you have with that system is you're gonna have ducts that are too big to run in the ceiling. So figure it out. And come up with a
There's
system.
ductwork there now, right?
No, it's on the roof.
Well, there's,
Literally, it's on the roof.
there, I saw it, so those are your duct
There's
mains.
not work inside too.
There's smaller ductwork inside.
Yeah, but it's all being fed off the roof and but they run them forever.
Let me throw this out too, just so you're aware, there is a basement underneath this part of the building. Could you put an air handler in the basement somewhere? Is there room?
I mean, I would have to study.
Yeah, Cheney, we'll defer to you on that one.
Well, but that's we're gonna hire him to do a study.
So,
We're gonna hire him to do a study and you're gonna bring a study back with a recommendation and some budget numbers, right?
yes, I can do that.
Okay, and then we work through the study.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So 3 months, you're gonna have something back. We're gonna have a,
I thought we said 3 days.
3 months is, yeah, 3 months is the bid.
No,
They
I
bid in
can-
3 months.
I can do a study much faster. I
Right.
would probably say you're looking at a month's time to do an overall study. I'd have to get a structural engineer here, an electrical engineer, to assess, those aspects
Right.
of changing the HVAC design. I mean, when it comes to replacing rooftop unit that's already there, it's pretty much a mechanical deal. But if we change systems completely, I gotta get other guys
Yeah.
involved to make sure that, they're not.
Mr. Kerr, and Mr. Kerr, I don't know if this helps or muddies the waters even more. Sir, is it possible to get like options for the board? One thing we notice the board likes is options.
Yeah.
So when you do your study, is it able to say, here's your recommendation, here's why,
Sure.
here's another one, here's why, and here's another one? That way the board can look at the data, because I think what we're worried about, what I'm worried about tonight is we're trying to answer a lot of questions without even doing a study. And I think maybe giving the board some options about, the best, right, most efficient cost, right, or best price, or your strongest recommendation, and give them 2 or 3 options to choose from. And that way they can vet that out. Is that fair, or is that just
Yeah,
muddy the
that's-
waters
that's-
even more?
We do that all the time. That's a great idea. I mean, we would give, options for A, B, C, and D. There'd be pros and cons to both, and there'd be, first cost to both, and, all of them, and then, you guys could.
I think you got enough feedback from the board what some of the designs or options could look like, correct?
Mhm.
Cheney, is there anything you want to add, though? Because I don't want to ignore your voice. You're the expert, not me in any way, shape, or form in this one.
I'm sure we'll have to spend some time together in this process.
So, Mr. Kerr, if you're okay with what I'm hearing, I think I'm hearing is we're going to authorize the study to be approved at our next meeting retroactively. That permits them, allows them to complete that study for the board's approval.
we want to see a proposal.
Yes. Yep, I'm sorry. Is that okay with you, sir?
You want to do the proposal to the board first?
Right.
Yep, that's what we're gonna take it to the board then first. So he doesn't do any retroactive work, he just makes a proposal.
Yeah, I will get you guys a proposal. Send it to you here, I guess. And,
Yeah, and do we want it to be a proposal for this side of the roof and then one for
No,
the east?
No, just this side of the roof, because we don't know what we're doing over there yet until Mike decides what he's gonna do.
Is that your understanding, what he just said? Or do you have a different understanding? Because Tom may have a different understanding than what you
I
just.
mean,
we just
if
did.
if I
I'd
was you
rather see
guys,
a proposal for both.
that's what I was.
That's what I was thinking, so we
The
could,
study isn't
I'll
that
second
much
that.
different between the two. I mean, you're just adding an area. I mean, from a fee
Got that,
perspective, it's
Tom?
not that much more money, so, yeah, I would do both. Yeah.
You're asking to study something that we don't know what we're doing. So he's gonna spend
It's
it.
not
too.
even that. Mike
It's
knows.
90% there, and all you need is the functionality of and the square footage is already there.
No, it's-
If you're okay with it, Mr. Kerr, Cheney, I'd ask you to contact this gentleman, set up a meeting with you, Jared, and Justin to walk through that room. You were part of the conversations where we were scrambling, trying to find a space. So maybe you guys can walk through this week, possibly, and see what you guys can come up with as far as future. But I think that's where we are leaning towards because of space. But we did maximize all of our classrooms, Mr. Kerr. That's why we're going to this route, sir.
And there's even room on back here. That's some equipment.
Are you okay, Cheney, coordinating that? Thank you. Is that okay with you, Mr. Kerr?
I'm good.
No, oh, I still have a
Cindy, you have a
question.
question?
I have a question and please forgive me, I'm not trying to be rude.
Ask away. It's
Who are you? Where did you come from? Have you worked for the district before? I've never heard of you, and that's the first part. And the second part, can you give a ballpark idea of how much a study is? Every time I hear the word study from an architect or a contractor, it's like $15,000, $20,000, and that just like a ballpark.
I'm gonna say $3,000 to $5,000.
All right,
You know,
all right.
That's enough. And so I'm Eric Grower. I work with CJL Engineering.
From where?
Well, I live in Carrolltown. We work out of Johnstown. We also have an office in Pittsburgh and Youngstown, Ohio. You know, I'm a principal. You may have met, I think, was Jim Vicinity at any of these?
Yes, I believe Miss Cinda met them when.
So,
Jim came to the meeting where we picked Buchard Horn to be our architect of record. So CJL works directly with Buchard Horn.
so Jim Vicinity
Okay,
is
because
my
I
direct.
thought he said they would have another, okay. all
But
right.
we, for some of this project, we would not be using the architects. We'd be contracting
Just
directly
going
with
straight to
CJL.
him. Okay, all right.
So Jim Vizzini, if you've met him, he's
Yes.
my direct supervisor. He's a partner. I'm a principal. So,
Okay,
you know, I have about 20 years experience. I do a lot of public schools, a lot of public school work. It's actually my primary focus. So
all right, yeah, question answered. I asked first if there was a connection to Buchard Horn, and I thought the answer was yes, and then I thought the answer was no, so, okay.
we have worked
You're
with
fine.
Buchard Horn in the past too. Actually, I'm working on a project at St. Francis University with him right now. A couple projects actually. So,
Have you worked with Mike before on any of the
No.
Johnstown schools?
No,
No?
I've never worked in the
Okay.
Johnstown area.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay,
But
all right.
a lot of Western PA, Central PA, Ohio schools, yeah.
What are you
Okay.
doing up at St. Francis?
Tons of stuff. We're doing a chill water plant upgrade. We're doing an anatomy lab renovation.
I read about that.
There's a big master plan for Sullivan Hall and the Health and Sciences building that we're working on, and library upgrades. Yeah, we do a lot of work at St.
So
Francis.
how many employees does your firm have?
I think overall we're about 155. In the Johnstown office, we're about 48 or so, something like that. So yeah, we're very big in the Western PA area. We got a strong back, so yeah, we do a lot of work.
And you don't foresee any problems in your schedule with getting back to us rather promptly with this?
No, I'll work on it immediately. I mean, give me a week and a half.
Well, yeah,
I
I mean,
would like to come back and I would like to receive some drawings, and I would like to be able to, look at those drawings, come back with those drawings, walk the building, and then after that, it takes me a couple hours to come up with a proposal for
I
it.
mean, this is probably our biggest deferred maintenance project right now. It's gonna be expensive, so we need, while we have some money and also what we're gonna have to come up with, maybe more than we're expecting, but for a long time, we plugged this number in at about 775,000, but I don't know if it ever included this section of it. That was just for this. And I didn't know.
We
on
didn't
this-
include the HVAC.
And I didn't know on this
No, that was gonna
particular
be another $1
schedule,
million bucks, right?
what, so you've got, now I know these are old prices, Terry, but you've got some divergent prices here. So the Duralast, six hundred thousand, 700, so there's $100,000. I didn't know which roof we were ultimately gonna, did I miss that?
Well, that was my next
But they need-
question, was gonna be, we need to,
I couldn't hear.
yeah,
prices
I
and
thought
stuff
we voted
doubled,
on this
almost
already.
tripled.
Like a year ago between the Duralast and the Phallus.
we did, and it was a 8-1 vote.
Yeah,
We wouldn't be talking about this. Oh, stop. So yeah, I'm gonna suggest that we go with the first line there, the Duralast, the R42, the 20-year, and that price, again, that's an old price, we all know that, but I wanted to decide what roof we're doing.
594,000.
Pardon me?
590.
Yeah.
And what I will do is, if that's the consensus of the committee, is go back to the contractors, the approved contractors through the state bid, and I will get an updated price on that.
So Barb, Tom, you guys are the committee, so we'll go.
So, did they, the damage risk to the inside ceilings, I think in the last time we talked about this, they said, well, if a nail came through, they would just then go inside and, clip that nail and sand it. Is that kind of,
No, they didn't all say that. Some of them said that they've done this work on this roof, on a roof like this before, and they didn't have a problem with the fasteners. They were very careful, and they didn't punch the fasteners through. That's what the goal would be.
The con-
that's my only
Well, I would
concern.
hope so.
Well, what about the talk previously that there's conduit buried in the
I don't
roof in
think
different places, that there's a danger of hitting with these fasteners? Do we know where all the conduit runs?
That will all be identified through drawings and review of the building, so that risk is
Minimized.
very, very minimized.
Well, it was brought up as a risk
No, it's a
before, and it
risk.
made no
It
sense,
is a
so,
risk.
I couldn't understand why there wasn't
But-
an accurate drawing, or why we
They
didn't know.
have, the contractors that Mr. Cronin and I walked around with and discussed that with, they were very, very, very careful. And I think the gentleman with that day, he could remember one incident where they had something, one. They don't just shoot once and then go back and look. They're very, very careful.
Mr.
all
Woodrum,
times.
if you could, for the sake of the committee, which one of these options do you recommend and why? And it seems like we're looking up number one. I think Jared alluded that you may be in support of it. Can you help people like me who have no idea about any of this, why this is a good fit for us?
My personal preference is Duralast. I think it lends some advantage that the old EPDM type roof doesn't. It absorbs heat, whereas the white is obviously going to reflect some. It is a little slick, especially in the winter. But they have mats that they provide, where you climb out of roof hatches in front of equipment panels where you service to keep you safe while you're working on units up there. That's just my personal preference. I think it's a better roof.
It certainly is, it's the roof we've had on now for 10 years,
We've used it in
Yeah.
numerous applications already.
and they've done a good job honoring the warranties. When there's
Yes.
been a warranty problem,
Yes.
they've shown up.
And
My problem with EDPM, the rubber roofs, is that they age badly, so that they tend to micro leak, is what I call it, is you hold up the balloon after 10 or 15 years, and it just kind of seeps out. And it's, with a ballasted roof, it's really hard to repair. To find a knife cut or a nail hole, it's hard to see. Where on the Duralast roof, there's nothing on top of it, so you have a snowball's chance of finding a defect.
Okay. So at this point, Mr. Kerr, what I'm hearing is that we may have,
oh, I guess using R42 or R48?
The R30 is the code requirement, R42, so we're 40% above code. I'd like to go to R60, but that's not possible today.
any increase in insulation creates other work in curbs and raising all of that equipment.
I think as I said, the R48 would create 2 more inch lift that made something difficult.
Yeah.
Any increase, and we looked at that, we were just under, any
What-
increase over what we have is going to
Well,
recommend raising.
R42 is more than we have.
But hopefully we're replacing the HVAC system at the same time, so.
It wasn't the HVAC system, it was the curbing around the outside edge. When we lifted that up above the curbing, then we had to put new fascia on the whole building.
Not only that curbing, but curbing around all the other air handlers, all of those type of things that are across the roof. We are going to have, increasing any insulation, we are going to have to look and maybe engage an engineer, CJL, to look at how we're going to raise all the curbs.
I was just gonna say, does this pricing include, new roof curbs and increasing roof curbs? disconnecting and reconnecting mechanical equipment. Because if this came from a roofer, it probably does not. That's my guess.
There were some very minimal things, I think the 3 little splits and the raising of the gas line. And that was about it
Okay.
in that cost.
So
There's very little equipment on the school roof.
there's,
On the school roof itself, there's very little rooftop equipment.
I mean, there's a ton of exhaust fans and gravity ventilators. So if I'm correct and this price does not include replacing roof curves, what's going to happen is the insulation is going to increase in thickness. It's going to get higher. And if your roofer just insulates to the roof curve that's up there, you're getting the top side of the roof closer to those, discharges of the exhaust fans and intakes, which, snow builds up, it can go in there. The roof projects that we've done before, we always increase those heights, but you need to get a pricing to do that. And usually, I guess you could do it with a mechanical contractor or a sub to the roofer as mechanical, but I would suggest looking into that. I mean, you can just roof right up to the curves that are there. There's just
The
there's a
freeboard.
there's a
yeah,
risk there.
The freeboard there's not as much.
Yeah,
And I know we talked about that the last time we talked about this, so that was gonna be part of the discussion, I think, with the roofer.
Yeah, once we had that decision, then we're going to need to go up even with the roofer
Right.
to talk about that and possibly come back to engage an engineer or somebody to look at. It would, I'm assuming there's enough work up there that we would have to bid that work out as part of either, I don't know if it would be an add-on to,
There's
roof.
not that many pieces on the roof. The main part of the school is wood with the decking on top. So there is no ventilation except in the restrooms and some other places. It's very, very few. It's a very clean roof compared to what we normally see.
Tom, there's probably 20 or 30 different units, ventilation units on top of that
Let's let
roof.
them- We're going down.
There's very little large pieces of equipment,
Right.
but there are a lot of little pieces of
Yeah.
equipment. Um,
Okay, yeah, and the reason that we did the R42 was because it missed most of that equipment. From what I
Okay,
did.
we're good with the door last and the R42
And
and
we'll
our-
check into the machinery.
the white roof gets us a little bit of the year.
Yes, that's a seller
Yeah.
green. So.
All right, we good there, Eric? You good with,
Yeah, I will, so what I'm hearing is you guys want me to work on a proposal for a study.
Yep.
To do some HVAC options,
right,
primarily with the 3 rooftop units that are there on the roof.
Sure.
Making sense?
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I like your presentation style stuff. You like, you, I don't want to say argue back, but you dialogue back and forth. And
That's good.
I want you to be honest, open, and, don't be afraid of offending us.
Well, thanks.
So-
I'm
We
here
like
to
to-
help. I
we
mean,
like
that's-
to
I'm
shout at
just here to
our-
help. That's-
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
We
Okay.
shout at each other, but we all like each other. Thank you, Eric. Nice meeting you.
Okay, sounds good. I can swing over anytime because I live over in Carrolltown, so it's no big deal. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right.
Thank you.
Sounds
It's nice
good.
meeting y'all.
Yep.
We'll see you next time.
Yep.
It's all the
Jared?
engineer because he's got his tape.
There you go.
I'm on your side, Eric, just so we have Tom on that side.
All right, you have a nice day.
Thanks, sir.
Good. We go to number 2, the storage of Eisenhower material update.
I
5
would-
minutes.
I would say probably 95% of the stuff has been brought back to Eisenhower that was taken out to be cleaned. At this point, we are not hearing of anything that's really been destroyed, other than, of course, what was in the modulars. But a lot of it has been removed from Eisenhower and either taken to the junior high for use by the teachers because they had the time to go in there and go through it, take what they needed to actually move into their classrooms at the junior high. And they purged a lot as well. We had to call the dumpster to be emptied a couple times. So there is still stuff left in the buildings. The majority of the desks have been pulled out and are being used across the district. Some of the cafeteria equipment is being used elsewhere when we had some issues with some other stuff. So there is stuff in the building, but it is very minimal, in my opinion, to what was in there. There are still some things that need to come back, like library books, some of the HPE, just that type of material that's wasn't on top priority to bring back because we knew we had stuff elsewhere to be able to use. It's still yet to come back, but like I said, probably 90% of it is on its way back.
So there's no decision or as far as storing the rest of it, you don't need us to.
No, I think the direction at the last committee was it all comes back for now, and when we decide what we're doing with the building, if we need to get it out, we'll find a place then. So.
All right, thank you. The last thing is the transportation update.
Mr. Travis is joining us remotely. I'll defer to Mr. Kerr if you're okay with that, and Jared.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. Talking to you on location from the girls' soccer match down at Gateway. So
Who's
might be a
winning?
little bit noisy here. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Right
We can
now,
hear you
it's
loud
the
and clear, Mike.
right now it's the JV game. It's halftime of the JV game, and it's 1-1. Just wanted to give you folks an update on how things are going at the beginning of the school year. We are currently operating with just enough drivers to cover our to school and from school routes. The routes are very, very tight this year with the adjustment of the Eisenhower Elementary School time schedule. So there's not really much room for any adjustments time-wise, but we've been fortunate so far that those have been operating pretty well. Drivers are getting familiar with their routes and they're operating pretty close to being on time. We still have, excuse me, a few adjustments possible between East Pike and Horace Mann. Some of those buses are struggling to get in, getting the students out of there at a decent time in the afternoons. I think part of it has to do with just the dismissal procedures, and part of it has to do with the routes that they have to take. Because of the Eisenhower adjusted schedule, we had to have them run a little bit longer high school routes. But right now we're working on that, and we should be getting those in shape here pretty soon in the next few days, I think. We'll see how this week goes. We do have been having issues with trying to get some of the athletic events covered. We had to cancel the first week of school. We had to cancel a couple of the junior high matches because we did not have drivers to take them to their away matches. The past couple of weeks, so we've been able to accommodate all the schedules as they're happening. We have been subsidizing the athletics with van rentals from McGill's and having some of the coaches drive the teams to their matches, primarily the golf and the tennis. So that's how we've been handling it so far. But we've been fortunate for the past couple of weeks. We have been able to cover everything that's been scheduled.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Travis?
I have a question for Travis and Jared. There's a lot of buses that are outside the fence now. We haven't, they're commonly being parked in East Pike, being parked behind in the grass, behind the fenced area. I'm concerned about security on our buses. Past that wasn't the case. Certainly not at this part. So my question is the bus company always for security?
As far as
3/4 of our buses are behind a locked gate with barbed wire.
Yes.
And the other 25% are out free. And some of them not got any security around at all. I'm concerned that the buses get damaged.
they are not our buses, so we don't own them. So if they are damaged or whatever, that is on the bus company to fix that.
I understand that, but they have our name on them and they transport our kids. And if 10 buses drop out, we don't transport our kids. And in the past, the buses have been behind a fence. And I'd like to know why they're behind a fence now.
The number of buses that we have now, we just do not have room to put them all within that fenced-in area. So
I understand that. So why doesn't the bus company expand the fenced-in area or make other arrangements to put the buses behind, but put their buses behind a secure area?
Maybe we should talk to him tomorrow, Chair, and see what we could do in follow-up.
Yeah, I think,
I'm good with
yeah,
that.
Mr. Harley, I think for a number of years, those buses have not been behind fence. With the expansion of our fleet, the requirements that we have with special needs transportation and the non-public transportation, we've added quite a few additional small vehicles, and we have just enough room in the corral for the big buses. But there's no room for the mini buses, the mid-size buses, the vans that we're currently using. And in years past, they've been stored down at the garage, but outside the fence around the maintenance building there. And it's become an issue with parking for the drivers, for people coming into the maintenance building to even find a place to park their cars, let alone, get the buses, have the buses in there. So this year, we moved some of those vehicles up here to the East Pike lot. It has eased the parking issue down around the maintenance building. As far as expanding the fence, I don't think there's any room down there to expand that fence any further. So they would have to find someplace off-site, and I think that would become a convenience issue, having the buses, having the vans off-site someplace.
There's area behind between us and the park that is grass right now that they're parking buses on. So there is additional space, but it's not gravel and it's not fenced. Also, there's a 400-car parking lot right on the other side of that berm with the township that we also could explore parking employees in that during the day. But we have to talk with the township about getting permission. If employee parking is a problem, that's a possible solution.
Yeah, Mike, why don't you talk to them tomorrow, see what kind of options you can come out. Another one would be maybe park them where there's video cameras that in case there are damages, we know exactly who they are and we can identify them. But Mike, why don't you put that on your list for tomorrow and you can work on that. Fair enough?
Sure.
I have a question. Is there anything the board needs to do to address the lack of drivers?
We have been, the contractor's been very active as far as trying to recruit. They've had job fairs, they have billboards, they have advertisements on the radio. So they've been working really hard to try to attract drivers. The district has been putting out blasts through, in all of their messages, offering, asking for anybody interested to come in. So I think we're trying to do everything we possibly can. They do have a couple of drivers that have come in and are currently going through training, but they definitely can use more. There's many more that we could be using, and we're not alone. I've reached out when we were having issues with the athletics. I've reached out to other contractors in the area, and they're in the same boat. They have just enough to cover their runs, and that's about it. So nothing to spare. And it's not just local; it's a national issue.
And Mike, maybe one other thing you could do to follow up, work with the local CTCs, whether it's in Cambria, Blair, Somerset, or Indiana County, see how many people they're producing with CDL licenses as they have those evening adult programs. And that might be a fertile recruiting ground for us as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anything else for the good of the order? Nothing heard. We'll close the meeting. Thank you all. I thought it was a good meeting.